Tree Nuts. I'm Russ Carson Jr., the founder of Family Tree Nuts. At Family Tree Nuts, we build family trees for people, and we produce videos at historic locations and videos that help to honor your ancestors.
I'm Jameson Cable, founder of the Kentucky History Podcast, where we talk about anything Kentucky history, events, people. If it has to do with Kentucky, we're going to discuss it.
And we've teamed up together to bring you History Nuts.
History Nuts is a live show where we talk about, you guessed it, history.
Right. History seems to be less and less to people today, but we are trying to do everything we can to keep it alive.
Absolutely. History is a passion of ours for sure, but it connects to you. Russ, tell us about the best part of the show.
You can join in. You can comment and ask questions live.
We've got a great topic today, and we know you're going to enjoy this episode of
History Nuts.
And we are live. What's up, buddy? What's up, Jameson?
Man, I'm liking this weather. We're warm finally. Finally getting some heat.
Yeah, I guess you like that. I don't like that.
Until next week.
Oh, yeah, that's
until
true.
Next week when it's like 95 degrees.
Oh, yeah, it's coming, man. It's coming. You know, We've been trying to hydrate, drinking a gallon and a half of water a day, so. But, man, we got a great show tonight, great topic tonight. Zachary Taylor. Who the heck is Zachary Taylor?
Yeah, I know. I mean, what's his connection to Kentucky? I mean, this is a mystery guy, a mystery president, if you want to say it like that. Nobody knows about this guy.
He's most of his activity is in that early 1800s, where part of American history that most people don't. You remember the Revolutionary War and then the Civil War, kind of thing, and forget that 90 years in between, or so.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So it's a really good topic tonight. Don says, hello, fellas. And Don's watching, I think, near Arden, Ohio. And make sure you tell us where you're watching from and join in. I mean, this is a live show. So make sure you join in, ask questions, give us input. We don't know everything about all these topics, although we're pretty prepared. But, let us know where you're watching from.
Yeah, let us know what you know about Zachary Taylor, because there's a lot to talk about that you may not even know.
A whole lot to talk about. And I was going to bring that up too, because if we get, we talked about this right before we joined on there. This could be a part 1, part 2 video. So we're in no hurry to get through it. But if it looks like we're going long, we'll break it off there and do a part 2 next week, because there's a lot to talk about Zachary Taylor. So.
Rough and Rowdy, or is it Rough and Rowdy or Rough and Ready?
Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready. I tell you what, man, that's one of the coolest nicknames I think you could ever have.
Agreed. So who is President Taylor?
I think that rivals with Old Hickory, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get off topic on presidential nicknames, but I would think those are probably top 2.
Absolutely. Oh, Rough and Ready. We're going to talk about how he got that nickname for sure. So.
So who is President Taylor?
Okay. Yeah. So here's just a brief. If somebody asked me who's President Taylor in about 15 seconds, this is what I would say. And we're going to go through timeline order, kind of bullet points. I mean, this guy lived a very eventful life, and we could talk for 6 months about Zachary Taylor. But we're going to go through some bullet points. But 15 seconds about Major General / President, or I guess he should be President / Major General Zachary Taylor. He was our 12th U.S. President. He was a career soldier, spent approximately about 40 years in the military, in the Army. He was a captain in the War of 1812, a colonel in the Black Hawk War in 1832. He also was in the Second Seminole War and multiple other engagements. He was the general hero of the Mexican-American War, the first president elected without having a prior political office. And his main goal when he was a president was to preserve the Union, and he died unexpectedly. So, into the show.
Yeah. Whoa, that was a lot, though. I mean, that's a pretty impressive resume. But there's more to it than that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the chapters right there that we dropped there. So the chapters of all this. So Linda Harvey said, watching from the great big metropolis center of the universe, Frenchburg, Kentucky. So,
all right, cool.
You know where Frenchburg is?
Is it? Give me the county it's in, and that'll. I'm trying to think if it's out west.
Nope.
Nope. That's why.
That's Menifee County.
Menifee. There we go.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. That's where my wife's people are from. So.
Cool. Oh, Frenchburg. Oh, we'll do a podcast about it sometime, at some point, I'm sure. So, I can't hear you. Oh, no.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought
I just been doing too much talking. I was waiting for you to say something.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we'll do a podcast on Old Frenchburg and Menifee County. We'll do it all someday, hopefully. But anyway, so Zachary Taylor got his start. Well, you brought this up. You brought this up already once. You know, he kind of falls into this area of post-Revolutionary War generals or presidents or politicians. You want to say like that, because he was actually born, in 1784. I guess kind of in the middle, or that kind of the end post Revolutionary War time anyway. So he kind of is that forgotten era of American politicians, if you want to say that, or early politicians. But like I said before, very eventful, very full life. He was the last president born before the U.S. had a constitution. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. His family was also very wealthy, which kind of gets that base. Well, I say that, and then I backstep again and say, like, most presidents you think of have a strong base and wealthy and all that sort of stuff, and that's how they work their way into office. However, he didn't really take that route in a way, I guess. But we'll get to his presidency later. But his family was very wealthy. Oh, go ahead.
From old money. Old money.
Yeah, old money. Yeah. Yeah.
Many generations of money. They weren't incredibly wealthy, but he's definitely wasn't the average Joe. His family wasn't the average Joe out there working in the field. So. Yeah.
But he was a second cousin to President James Madison, which is pretty cool. Third cousin, once removed, to Robert E. Lee. So
you
already building a pedigree here. So
I think his grandmother was a Lee kind of thing. So he was connected to them, and it was not uncommon for those in the I guess you'd call them the aristocracy of the time, to intermarry with one another. Especially with such a small population back then too. So,
Well, so his father was named Richard Taylor. He was also a lieutenant colonel in the old Revolutionary War. So he was battling out there with the founders. You could consider him, I guess, a founder of America if he fought in the Revolutionary War. But this is a bit more interesting. Before the Revolutionary War, and this is going to get the connection to Kentucky, I'm real pumped about. But Richard, Zachary Taylor's father, came with his brother Hancock and explored the Ohio and Mississippi rivers in 1769 and 1771.
Yeah,
I mean,
all the way down. They went from modern day Pittsburgh all the way down New Orleans. Then they took a boat, sailing ship back to Virginia. What?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
1769.
That's a pretty wild journey.
That's when Daniel Boone was out first making his trip into Kentucky. So this is the first of things that I find pretty interesting is, so many people think that Boone gets too much credit, that Boone started, founded Kentucky. Boone, settle Kentucky first, and Boone with this and Boone that. But yes, Boone is a very important person into history there. But there was a whole lot of other people here running around.
Very true. Well, just exploring and everything. But just to think of this trip at this time, would France would be in control of New Orleans, correct? Or would it be
Actually
Spain?
no, Spain. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spain,
I was wondering. But I mean, I guess whichever government controlled it at the moment really wouldn't matter, wouldn't make the trip any different. But to go all the way down, the Ohio, Mississippi, then get to New Orleans, hop on a boat, and come all the way back to Virginia. I mean, that's a pretty long trip. Obviously, it took about 2 years. So
really exciting for sure, and yeah. And his dad Richard was actually, that's where the connection comes. He said he was a lieutenant colonel in the Revolution, and he was given 8,000 acres in Kentucky for his service. And we'll talk about that in a second. But man, I wanted to bring up his brother Hancock. Because in 1773, his brother Hancock. We're getting a little bit off topic, but this is part of it. Zachary Taylor's uncle, Hancock Taylor, was hired by the governor of Virginia to do some surveying for some French and Indian War veterans to give them land in Kentucky, kind of thing. So then in 1774, he's right there at the mouth of the Kentucky River, and which is near modern day Carrollton, and he gets shot. As a Native American attack, he gets shot, and his buddies, do what they dig out their rusty pocket knife and try to dig on him a little bit, and they want to get the bullet out. But then he tracks place he blends tracks again with Daniel Boone. You remember Daniel Boone was sent into Kentucky by the governor to warn all the surveyors to get the heck out of Kentucky, that the Shawnee are getting ready to go on a warpath here. They're getting ready to start invading settlements on the west. And so Hancock and his companions head on out. They start to headed towards the Cumberland Gap, and they get to a little place which is now called Taylor's Fork that empties into Silver Creek, and in modern-day Madison County, Kentucky, and that's where he dies, right there in 1774. This is neat to me because this is literally, I'm not exaggerating, this is literally less than a mile from my house, kind of thing.
Oh,
Yes, Zachary Taylor's uncle died right out here. This was before settlement, this was before Boonesboro, kind of thing.
Is there a marker out there?
There is an historic marker on the side of the road, a little bit off of there. I know later on, Richard came and looked for his brother. I think in 1803, he came looking for his brother's grave. This would have been 27 or 8 years later. He came with a gentleman from Boonesboro, and gave him. He showed him where he was at, and the pioneers knew where that burial was, and they actually gave him a proper burial site. Now that burial site is lost as of right now. We know right about where it is, but don't know the exact grave, kind of thing. So,
well, one thing, and this is kind of crazy. I wonder, he gets shot. Like you said, they all pull out their rusty knives to dig out the bullet, and you wonder if they said, "Whoa, let's use that one. It's got the least amount of rust," or do you think they just went digging in?
I think they didn't realize rust was a problem. They just went digging in there to get them out of there. So, yeah, man.
So another, looking at the years, this is, like you said, 1773, 1774, and there's not even a fully established settlement in Kentucky yet. Harrodsburg is about to be settled, or Harrodstown at the time. Boonesboro a few years later, and so this is a pretty big, a pretty big player, in surveying and preparing Kentucky to be settled. And people probably don't even realize it was John Hancock's dad and his uncle out there running around. So Like I said, Boone gets a lot of credit, but there's a lot of other players as
Zachary
well.
Taylor, Zachary Taylor's uncle. Hancock.
Yeah, Zachary Taylor's uncle. Yeah,
not
Uncle
John
Hancock.
Different guy, different story.
Yeah.
So man, pretty cool. Yeah. So as a young boy, and we don't know the exact year, but his family comes, and we think it's around 1788-ish.
Yes, and I don't know if we brought this up, but his dad was given 8,000 acres near Louisville for his service in the war, the Revolutionary War, and so forth. And that is, that's where you were getting to. They came to Kentucky. Here's the connection to Kentucky. So go ahead.
Yeah. So they set up shop. They built a plantation house there, and in 1790, I think the house was complete. And they were prosperous. Now, this is where it ties into the show that we did last week. Remember we talked about it up to about the year 1800. Louisville was just a small town, but from about 1800 to 1820, 1830, it absolutely exploded. And Zachary Taylor's father, and then himself early on, was a big benefactor of that. They ended up profiting. They ended up having over 10,000 acres, and he had a couple dozen slaves. His father did.
We got a few comments here. Joshua Clayton says one of my Clayton ancestors was in his cabinet, so that's pretty cool. There's a statue of him in the Capitol, and Kim is watching from Lawrenceburg, Anderson County.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, man.
So, you were saying, but so quite a few slaves, a lot of acres. Every time I read this, I think of Springfield. They named their home Springfield. I think of, well, that is in Washington County, man. Washington County is not close to Louisville at all. But
right.
I guess different.
Different Springfield. Yeah, this is just the name of his house. What have you named your estate, Jameson?
What would I name my estate here?
No, what is your estate name?
Cable Castle, I guess.
That's funny. We always say Carson Castle, or Castle Carson, But we don't have an estate like these fellas did, do we? So
no.
One thing I wanted to notice too is as he was growing up, he didn't have a formal education, and it said that he had poor handwriting, and he had poor handwriting for the duration of his life. I think this is important because they say that very intelligent people have poor handwriting, that their brains work so fast, they don't have time to even write it out, and they get aggravated trying to speak because they're on 3 sentences down.
Just let me tell you, my handwriting is terrible.
That's like mine is too, man. That's where I was going with that. So, yeah, man. It's chicken scratch for sure. Like I don't even want to if it's misspelled, I don't care. I'm moving on. So yeah. So I thought that was a neat coalition. In 1810, there's a little event there in 1808, but in 1810 he actually gets married to Margaret Mackle Smith. And they have 6 children.
That's quite a bit, I guess. But for them, that's probably that's not a lot.
Sure.
They I was reading about somebody, and they said that, Benjamin Franklin, he was 17, one of 17 kids. So
wow.
I mean, a little 100 years difference, but still, 6 kids sounds like a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 kids, and one of his sons actually, Richard Taylor, went by Dick Taylor and ended up being a Confederate general, kind of thing.
And then one was Sarah Knox. They called her Knoxie Taylor. She married Jefferson Davis in 1835. So
Jefferson Davis. Who's Jefferson Davis?
You ain't never heard Jefferson? Confederate
state Davis Fogg from the Dukes of Hazzard.
There you go. A few president.
But that's a real neat story right there. So Jefferson Davis actually served underneath Zachary Taylor while they were stationed, I think in the Black Hawk War, they're stationed up there, I think in the Michigan Territory. And back then was the custom that you could bring your wives and children to live with you out there on the frontier or wherever you might be. And and anyway, so his daughter was there, and Jefferson Davis wanted to marry his daughter. He asked, he asked Zachary Taylor, "Hey, I'd like to have your daughter's hand," and he said,
"No,
no."
No,
you know why?
You cannot. Tell us.
Well, he said that he didn't want his daughter to have that military lifestyle kind of thing. So, so Jefferson Davis wasn't going to take no for an answer, and he didn't marry her right off. What did he do first?
He said, "I'm out. I'm done. I resign."
He resigned from the Army. He's like, "All right, well, she must have been a pretty gal." So,
they got that. Pretty crazy, but sadly, 3 months later, she dies. She
died of malaria, kind of thing. So really, really sad. And in case you guys don't realize this is Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate States of America that we're talking about, kind of thing. And it's just a neat thing that all these people are intertwined and connected so often in the world there. But so really tragic thing.
So he was oh, did you have something else to add?
No, not about that one.
Okay, I was gonna say, so he was definitely a military man, and after looking him up, I mean, we're not just saying a military man; he was a military man. I mean, he's got a pedigree. No, not a pedigree. A resume that is quite lengthy.
Yeah, huge resume. We're gonna hit on that a little bit, aren't we? So, yes. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do we need to take a break before we hit on it? But we probably can go a little bit before we take a break.
Yeah, a little bit longer here. But he joins
1808.
1808. He definitely joins the Army there. And now the important part about this is there was beginning to be a lot of saber rattling. This is right before the War of 1812, and things moved a little slower back then. You didn't have CNN and Fox News back then. So things went a little slower, and most of the wars and stuff had a lot of things happen, leading up to that. So immediately he gets sent to New Orleans to be stationed in anticipation of a war with Great Britain, and so he's stationed down there.
We say rattling of sabers, though, or saber rattling. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's just a word for people that are talking war. It's
okay.
Gotcha. It's a flexing contest by politicians and other. It's a figure of speech meaning. Saber rattling. It's talking about we're gonna invade or we're gonna go to war if you do not do this or that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So, so we
right about that time he starts. This is where he starts to get into real estate, man. He starts buying plantations too, and he's not just a soldier, but he starts buying things, and he ends up having over 200 slaves at this point too. Right about this time, so he's definitely becoming very wealthy, and while he's a young military officer too. 1811, he's sent to Fort Knox. Fort Knox,
as in
Fort Knox, Fort Knox wasn't founded until like 1909 or something like that. Different Fort Knox. This is the secondary fort outside of Fort Sackville, there in Vincennes of George Rogers Clark fame. They're out there on the frontier and on the Wabash, there between Indiana and Illinois there. But so he's sent there to take charge of that post, and he starts to get recognition, by William Henry Harrison, his commander.
Yeah,
he has to go back to Washington, D.C. to testify in a court-martial, and he misses the big battle of
Tippecanoe, man.
yeah.
Wow. That's
So,
against Tecumseh. I mean, that was probably that was the biggest battle of the war. I mean, correct?
right, absolutely, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it becomes Harrison's political slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. That
Yep.
so he misses that battle, and that's kind of a big deal because he could fade off into oblivion at this point because life isn't just about preparation and what you do. It's also about a little bit of luck and a little bit of circumstances that happen. And he missed that big battle, so that was a big deal there. He served out the remainder of the War of 1812 there on the frontier, out there in Indiana, Illinois territory and such. And he was a brevet. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the Northwestern Territory, if you want to call it that. Yeah, but what is a brevet major?
He was brevet.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, brevet. Brevet is like a temporary promotion in wartime. They give you a rank and during war because you raise up the military so big, but after the war, the military can shrink in size and you don't need to have all these people of high rank. A great example of that would be Custer. Custer was a general. I think he was a major general, even I'm not exactly sure. But then he ends up becoming all the way down to a lieutenant colonel after the Civil War, in their time of Battle of Little Bighorn. So brevet is a temporary promotion. The war ends, and they brought him back to a captain. And that kind of ticked him off a little bit. So
I'm out. He resigns.
Yeah, he resigned, and he was out of the military for a year. So that's why people say he was in for 40 years, but he's had a couple of hiatuses along the way. And they eventually want him back, and his reputation precedes him. They bring him back in and allow him to be a full major at that point. So
kind of worked out for him,
Yeah.
Take a little break.
What?
I said, he took a little break. Worked out for him.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I keep cutting you off.
That's all right. I was gonna say. So yeah, he hops back into it, and in 1817 and 1818, he is commanded Fort Howard. I almost said Harrod. Fort Howard in Green Bay, Wisconsin, up in the Michigan.
Actually, that was Green Bay, Michigan. Yeah, Green Bay, Michigan territory.
I said Green Bay, Wisconsin, but Green Bay, Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan, it becomes Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yeah, absolutely. and I wanted to bring that up too because the observation there when I think about that is here's a guy who starts off his military career. They sent him to New Orleans. Now he's living in Green Bay.
Yeah, he's traveling.
You want to talk about some severe climate differences right there,
Yeah.
Frozen tundra, the Green Bay Packers land down to the hot, humid swamp in Hollins down there, so he definitely, and he's bringing his wife with him the whole time, so what she's having to say about all this. So,
kids. Whew.
By 1813, he's back in Louisville. And now he gets promoted to lieutenant colonel. So he raises to the ranks, in just 11 years or so, he's all the way up to lieutenant colonel. So that's probably why he became a career soldier. 1821, he was sent to establish some new bases, some new strategic bases down in Louisiana. And he stays down there again till 1824. So now
that adds up. That adds up even more. He was Louisiana, went up north, went to Washington, went back up north to Green Bay, and now he's back down in Louisiana. I mean, that is some serious, and this is all within about 10, 13 years, 14 years. That's a lot of traveling.
And notice that all of his military positions are in the West. He's got another one coming up that's in the East, but not back east. and this plays into people didn't know a whole lot about him. He was kind of a guy that he wasn't in the newspapers all the time. So people didn't know who he was as a man, and that was a big deal for later on in his life too. So in 1824 to 1826, he gets sent on what all career military people do in the middle of their careers. He gets sent on
a recruiting duty, right?
Yeah,
Woohoo!
yeah, man. He becomes a leader to recruit troops for the United States Army, kind of thing. I'm sure that he wasn't the ones combing the towns, but he was the commander.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, did you ever, in your military career, have to recruit or anything like that?
Well, I actually got selected for recruiting duty, which I would have loved. And most people hate it. I hate it. But I was on my way in the process of getting a military discharge at the time, so I wasn't able to go on recruiting duty. I'd have been a heck of a recruiter, by the way. But so it was a pretty cool duty for sure. And then 1826, he's living down in Louisiana. He buys a big plantation down there near Baton Rouge, and he moves his family officially from Kentucky, Louisville area, down there to Baton Rouge. So he's a Louisianan, right?
I don't know. I mean, 26 years in Kentucky, or around 26. I think we could claim him. Let's see how long he stays in Baton Rouge.
Well, his wife and kids were living. They were living in Louisiana. They were living in Green Bay. They were living in Indiana.
If we're talking about years in Kentucky, it's probably pretty slim.
But his parents are there, and they end up, of course, living the rest of their lives out there.
Yeah.
Now, in 1828 and 1829, he took commands of Fort Snelling and Fort Crawford in the Minnesota Territory again, in Michigan Territory. That's modern day Minnesota. So now he goes again. He's got a nice plantation down there in the swamps, Baton Rouge, and gets sent all the way up to Minnesota.
This is serious traveling, especially for the time being.
Get something moderate, maybe back in Louisville or something like that, where it's nice moderate temperature. He's going from smoking hot to freezing cold all the time,
Yeah. So then he goes on though. He's promoted to colonel, and
lieutenant.
He had
lieutenant colonel.
I thought he was already lieutenant.
Oh yeah, he's already a colonel, wasn't he? My bad.
So is he? So he's a colonel now.
Yep, in 1832, he's promoted to a full colonel.
He's colonel. All right, full colonel. and he fought in the Black Hawk War. What was the Black Hawk War?
Well, the Black Hawk War and the Black Hawk War was right there in Illinois and southern Wisconsin. And it was basically like some treaty disputes of, and that's one thing. I'm definitely don't want to get on a tangent right here because there's a lot of people that constantly talk about how the white people stole the natives' land. They shouldn't have been here. They stole it. They did them wrong and things like that. And I ain't here to say that's not what happened. But what I'm saying is that some treaties were written, but some chiefs of that same tribe said, "Hey, man, I'm not going to abide by that." So, I think we were wronged, or it's a whole lot of gray in all these situations for sure, kind of thing, and it's very tragic throughout American history, right there. But Black, the chief of Black Hawk, he rose up a force and was constantly raiding settlements. Right there in the Illinois Territory, mainly. So he did serve there, and that's where actually he served with Jefferson Davis.
Okay, all right, and then well, let's pause right there. Take a quick break.
Yeah. Good spot for that.
And we'll be back for more.
Zachary Taylor on the other side. See you in 3 minutes.
Maybe.
Are we going to commercial? Jordan?
Maybe not. Hello?
Green comments. Well, I guess we'll keep going till Jordan wakes
All
up.
right.
Robert Letcher was born in Goochland County, Virginia on February 10, 1788. His father, Stephen Giles, with his mother, Bessie Perkins, moved the family to Garrett County, Kentucky around the turn of the century. He attended Josh Fry's school near Danville, and he became a lawyer in Garrett County. He married Susan Odin Epps. After Susan died, he married Charlotte Robertson. Letcher was a great speaker and had a very likable personality. He also played the fiddle. These characteristics led him to seek political office. He was elected to numerous terms in the Kentucky House of Representatives, 1813, 1814, 1815, and 1817. He served in the U.S. House for 12 years, from 1823 to 1835. The election of 1833 was very close. So close, the U.S. House ordered another election between Letcher and his challenger, Thomas More. Letcher won by 258 votes. Letcher was a member of the Whig Party and a strong supporter of Henry Clay. He was again in the House of Representatives from 36, 37, and 38. He was a Speaker of the House for the years of 1837 and 1838. His political capital had risen over the years, and Letcher was chosen to be the Whig candidate for governor. Black Bob was Letcher's nickname, and he hit the campaign trail giving stump speeches and winning over Kentucky voters' support. Letcher became the 15th governor of Kentucky. Letcher had a very successful term in office. The United States was still plagued by the Panic of 1837. Letcher had the job of trying to balance a budget and maintain the state credit. He cut spending on river improvements. He was against the debtors' relief, but still helped prevent people from losing their property. Throughout all of this, each year Letcher was in office, the state produced a surplus. The Kentucky banks were able to make specie payments. After leaving the governor's office, he practiced law in Frankfort, but he soon returned to seeking public office. He was the U.S. Minister to Mexico from 1850 to 1852. While in Mexico, he helped negotiate issues that involved American interests. At this time, Letcher was getting old in age and would not be re-elected in office, but he did, however, remain in the public eye when it came to politics. When the Whig Party fell apart, he supported the Know-Nothing Party. Letcher died on January 24, 1861, in Frankfort, where he was also buried. I hope you've enjoyed learning about Robert Letcher. He was a politician through and through, and he served in many different positions, but most importantly, he was the 15th governor of Kentucky, and was one of the more successful governors to this point in time. Letcher County, the 95th county of Kentucky, is named after Robert Perkins Letcher. Don't forget to try out audibletrial.com/kyhistorypod to get a free book of your choosing. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification button for more Kentucky history content. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/kyhistorypod. Find us on these social media platforms and check out the Kentucky History Podcast on these podcast platforms for more in-depth history of Kentucky. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
And we're back. Oh, Letcher.
Oh, Letcher. Good governor. Up to the point, you know.
Living in Lancaster, but his county named after him is way up in the hills.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's far east, man. Oh,
yeah, man. Yeah, man. We got some comments here. Tanner says, hey, guys, watching from Louisville, literally sitting about 10 minutes from Zachary Taylor Cemetery, where he is buried.
Cool.
And had lived on the property. So, yeah, man. And Jack says, hello, Family Tree Nuts. Ancestor Walker says, what about Brigadier General? What is that? Well, a Brigadier General is the first general rank. It's an 07. It's just above a colonel. You got Brigadier General, then Major General, then Lieutenant General, and then General. Another class. But Lisa Taylor says she's related to old Rough and Ready. And if you're talking about Zach Taylor, yes, we are talking about Zachary Taylor today. So, and Reagan says, sounds like he traveled up and down that Mississippi quite often. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's got a lot of miles on him.
Yep, absolutely. So jump back in here. So he's in the Black Hawk War there. And, shortly thereafter, when that's over in 1837, he gets sent somewhere south again, but a little bit different this time.
Yeah, to old Florida, man. He's gonna go down and fight the alligators in the swamp down there. But actually, in the Second Seminole War, that's what he's taken to.
Down there, and takes part on the he's commanding troops there in the Christmas Day battle there of Lake Okeechobee there, and
good. I'm glad you pronounced that one first.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't know Okeechobee? But pretty big lake. You've seen the airboats and stuff like that they got going on, but that was one of the major battles or largest battles that had Native Americans against Americans in a full-fledged battle right there, as far as the amount of personnel. For the next 2 years, he is in charge of all of Florida, all the military things to do with Florida. And this is the time where he earns his nickname.
Oh, Rough and Ready.
Oh, Rough and Ready. Yeah, man. So
he's growing. He's also promoted to Brigadier General. So he's moving up those ranks.
Right. Brigadier General, who we just talked about, kind of thing. So, yeah, man. He took some time off. He took pretty much most of the year off in 1840.
Yeah.
I wish I could take
the country. Well, I mean, he toured the country, but to me, I mean, he's been up and down all over the country at this point. I guess maybe he went east. Maybe he went to the
he went back east. Took his wife and said, "Babe, it's been rough, but I'm going to take you on a nice trip here." He's a very wealthy man from his own personal investments and things. He went and pressed a little flesh.
My thought about this real quickly is like, I mean, he owns a lot of land. Obviously, he has all this plantation, but like, how is he even keeping up with this? Going back and forth across country, and I mean, I guess maybe did he sell his land when he moved, or I mean, I'm kind of lost on how.
He's an officer, and he's a high-ranking officer, which basically means he's doing whatever the heck he wants to do most of the time. So we used to. Your lowest officers are lieutenants, and we would ask like, "Hey, where's the lieutenant at?" And they're like, "Oh, he's out doing lieutenant things. He's out doing lieutenant things, golfing. Gotcha. He's in meetings. He's drinking coffee with the colonel, kind of thing. He's had plenty of
talking
time
about meetings."
Yeah. The high-ranking officers, especially, have a lot of responsibility for sure, but. If they're not in wartime, they have some free time to do what they need to do and things like that. So, but of course, he would have been wealthy enough to have people running everything for him as well, too. So we'd only have to come check in from time to time.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Now we're moving to the big parts of his life.
The big parts, I guess. So in 1841. He was made commander of the 2nd Department of the Army's Western Division, west of Mississippi and south of 37th parallel, which is the border of Missouri and Arkansas and Kansas and Oklahoma. So, pretty big deal.
Pretty big territory there. Not as it's sparsely populated at the time, as much, but above that border right there would have been the 1st district of the West there, and he was in the 2nd district. But a pretty important and fireball place was in his district there. There is Texas, which is becoming a big deal during this time. 1841, like you said, he goes and now he gets stationed in Arkansas, somewhere that's a little bit better climate than the swamps of Louisiana or the freezing cold, or or the swamps of Florida, or the freezing cold of Minnesota or Green Bay, and so he's in Arkansas. And if you don't know the time period right then, Texas had earned its independence from Mexico, and there was a lot of talks about bringing Texas into the Union. Well, Mexico never really thought that Texas was independent in the first place. They thought they just kicked them out for a little bit. So if Texas gets annexed by the United States, then Mexico loses Texas forever. And the government knows this. So they send Zachary Taylor back down to Louisiana, Nacogdoches there, and eventually mobilize him and his army, his forces into Texas, don't they?
Yes, yeah, and well, so that's kind of where he's sent to. President Polk, right?
Yep.
So President Polk sends him in there.
The Democrat, and that's important later. So
sends him in there into Mexico, and ready for an invasion, right?
Well, and then down to Texas there, and until he gets to 1846, he mobilizes the forces down to the Rio Grande, down on the river, down on the border. They know that something's getting ready to happen, and it definitely does.
So then in May, Taylor leads American forces against the Mexican army at the Battle of Risako de la Palma.
Risako de la Palma, yeah.
And the Battle of Palo Alto.
Palo Alto, yeah. Polo's like chicken, isn't it? So
yeah.
So I'm not too good at my Spanish. I can speak French, but Spanish is a little bit harder for me. But I think it's Palo Alto there. And after those big battles, he got another promotion.
This is after the battle he was given the promotion to Brevet Major General.
Yeah,
which is only a part-time promotion. But a month later. Full major.
Gave him his second star. Major General, which he's finally reached the rank that he was destined to get. He starts basically, the guy has been kicking tail all over the daggone West, all over the place. And he starts to get recognized now because this is a major thing that's in the news. The Seminole War, the Black Hawk War, some of that stuff was kind of hush-hush. Even the War of 1812 adventures that he was out there on the frontier. But now he starts to get a big name for himself, and people start comparing him to some pretty big people.
Old George Washington. Come on. That's the man. If you're an American, that's the man you want to be compared to. And your boy,
Andrew
Big
Jackson.
J.
Yeah, but he is. So, he starts to be compared with people like that. So his name is growing in popularity, but still a ton of people don't know a whole lot about him yet.
No.
Who is this guy, this mystery man, Zachary Taylor?
Yes, and then, did we mention that in September 1846, he defeated the Mexicans at the Battle of Monteiro? I got that right?
Monterey?
Monterey. Oh, man. In 3 days, which was supposed to be an impenetrable force, right?
Yeah. The word was out that that nobody could sack it, kind of thing. Yeah. But he did it just in 3 days there in Monterey. But beautiful place in that area right there. But a lot of people don't think of. They think of Mexico. They think of desert. But beautiful place. But so now James Polk being the Democrat.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Well, he's a little bit worried because he doesn't know what the political leanings are of Zachary Taylor.
Landscape. Yeah.
Huh?
I said landscape, like the political landscape.
Yeah. He doesn't know what he's afraid that Zachary Taylor's going to get too powerful, and he wasn't the head commander there, so he takes a lot of his troops and his most experienced troops, and sends them under the command of General Winfield Scott. That definitely had some big victories in the Mexican-American War, including the Battle of Chapultepec, which is the Halls of Montezuma. Have you ever heard of the Halls of Montezuma?
Maybe.
From the Halls of Montezuma to the Shores of Tripoli. It's the Marines' hymn, kind of thing. So a bunch of Marines were there at that battle. But now we're getting off topic again, but we're going to bring up some Marine history. I'm all about it. But so he's a little bit worried, and he tries to squash him a little bit. General Santa Anna finds out that Taylor's troops
are a bit smaller.
A little depleted. So he thinks now's the time to strike.
Now's the time to attack. Yep. Taylor's forces were well dug in, though, and defeated Santa Anna at the Battle of Buena Vista. I got that one right.
Yeah, you said that right. Yeah, beautiful view, Buena Vista. So, which is
but he oh, go ahead. What did you say?
That's a major battle in the Mexican-American War, Battle of Buena Vista.
So Taylor remained in Monterrey, right?
Ain't you ever had Monterey Jack cheddar cheese?
No, that's when I was thinking of Chip and Dale, the Rescue Rangers. They have a character named Monterey.
Monterey Jack, the boss. We're back to cartoons here again. So,
but anyway, he stayed there until 1847, and he took a steamer home, and he got a hero's welcome. In New
back
Orleans.
home in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. So, like you said, his name is getting out there. Taylor was awarded many awards for his service in the war, and only person to be awarded 3 congressional gold medals. So,
yeah, that's a big deal.
Pretty big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a national hero. He's a daggone rock star. You know what I'm saying? It's somebody. I can't even think of somebody that would be as big as him, at the time, And what made him even bigger is that nobody knew what his political leanings were, kind of thing. We're finally getting into that.
This is going to be a 2-parter. We ain't even talked about him being a president.
I think we'll wrap this up pretty quick because his presidency is pretty fast, But
I guess you're right.
Yeah. So nobody knows what his political leanings are. Is he a Whig? Is he a Democrat? Kind of thing. So Crittenden, there from
Kentucky.
Was a big leader in the Whig Party. Finally, convinces him to declare himself a Whig. He did say that. Now, this is very interesting. That like I said, he's the only president to never have any kind of or not the only. He's one of the only, or the first president to never have any political background before he got, before he became president. And he said that he would have voted, or he never voted. He never voted. It's insane because voting's an important thing to me, and he never voted. But he said that if he would have voted, he would have voted for
Henry Clay. Woo!
Yeah, Henry Clay, who ran for president so many times and never was able to gain the presidency.
But just think, you bring up the fact that he didn't, people didn't know his political, secrets or political, I guess, loyalties or whatever. Just think, though, if that was everybody, what if everybody just kept their political thoughts to themselves? And,
what would we read on Facebook? So.
Exactly. What would the world be like?
Yeah, that's for sure. So eventually declared himself a Whig. He defeated Henry Clay and the other General Winfield Scott for the nomination. And he also defeated Lewis Cass and the former president Martin Van Buren, Van Ruin, as some people called him.
And he also was the last person to be president not in the Republican or Democrat Party. So that's pretty interesting. A little fact.
One of 3 Whigs elected.
Mhm.
Last one, not a Republican or Democrat. That's a integrity question, isn't it? Last president, not a Republican or a Democrat. Zachary Taylor. There you go. Maybe that'll win you the big money.
He was also the last Southerner elected until Woodrow Wilson in 1912. So it's almost 50, 60 some years.
Sure.
He stated his command of the Western Division before heading to Washington, D.C. to be president in January 1849. So
and I think that's pretty cool. Most guys would
still
resign.
loyal to his troops, man. Yep.
Yeah, he stayed there as long as he could. And he left a little late, and he had an eventful month journey all the way to D.C.
Mm-hmm. He wanted to place old Governor Crittenden as his Secretary of State, but he declined because he just became the governor of Kentucky,
right?
Which we will actually be talking about. The video was about Letcher. Crittenden is coming up soon too, so I have a video about him. But
yeah, it all ties in there, doesn't it? So
yeah.
But it took him a month to get there, and he was actually abducted on his way to Washington. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's pretty wild. You think he would have had a bit more security on him?
Well, he was ready to have a steamer pick him up there at his base and head him upriver there, and a family friend captained a steamer and picked him up, and they were on their way up the Mississippi before they realized that they were on the wrong steamer. And that family friend wanted to have the honor of transporting the president-elect. So when they notified President-elect Zachary Taylor, hey man, you've technically been kidnapped. When they told him who it was, he actually thought it was funny, kind of things. Was amused by it all. So hey, don't ask. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So
there you go. Yep.
We technically kidnapped the president for a short term. So
Yep. So old Taylor, his term started on Sunday, March 4th, 1849, but he wasn't sworn in until Monday because of his feelings about the Sabbath, and that's where we talked about that earlier. The whole no technical president for 24 hours or so.
David Atchison, the Senator David Atchison was, people say, president for a day. He filled in
pro quorum or something like that. President pro quorum or something like that.
Yep, there's Latin stuff in there, But Polk's presidency expired. Taylor didn't take the oath until on Monday, and Sunday on March 4th. Technically, Senator Atchison was acting president for a day. So I've seen his journals before. He basically didn't do anything that day. He just hung out at the house. That kind of things. He could have taken over the world, right? So.
Yeah. Taylor also used the phrase "First Lady" first. First Lady first. He used the term "First Lady" first.
Yeah.
With Dolly Madison.
Yeah, visited with Dolly Madison. Yeah, man, that's pretty cool. And what was the major issue of his short presidency?
The major issue, this was building up, was what to do with slavery in the new territories. As he falls in the same boat as Henry Clay in many factors here, because Taylor was a slaveholder himself, but didn't think slavery was practical or practical in the Southwest. For growing cotton and sugar, and which brings up a good question. With mechanical advances, would slavery have died out eventually?
Well,
big question, obviously.
Yeah, that was the whole big thing during the time right there. Is everybody knew slavery? Well, not everybody, but most people, even the South, were not big fans of slavery. But to do away with slavery so suddenly would be an economic collapse kind of thing. But they started having all kinds like the cotton gin and things like that, where new technologies where they necessarily may not have needed to have slavery. And many wonder, had the Civil War not broken out, would have slavery died out another, 10, 20, 30 years after that kind of thing. So it's one of those big questions of all those deaths, was it worth Was it really worth it when it could have just? There's politicians, man, they get together and start saber rattling again. like we were talking.
Well, and that was the big. I mean, like I said, that was the big gray line of politics at the time was slavery. There's the whole economic issue, and then two, I could see it very much dying away, but I could also see certain people. Some people would still cling to it and still want that. I guess if you want to say power or whatever. So I don't know how long it would take. I mean I obviously do not know the ins and out of slavery and the Civil War and all that stuff, or the political environment. But
sure,
tough question to answer because I don't know if there is a correct one. Hindsight's 2020. So
and the big thing is they just conquered. Well, they defeated Mexico in the Mexican-American War, and the prize was tons of territory. Basically the states of modern-day New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, parts of Colorado, California, Nevada, kind of thing. So, what are they going to do with that out there now? The slave states, they wanted to expand slavery out west, but to basically keep the balance of power, kind of thing. And that's where Henry Clay stepped in with his compromise of 1850 right then, which basically, to really sum up very quickly, was allow a slave state for a free state and keep the scales balanced there for a little while. And but it got pretty hairy. I think Texas threatened to actually invade into New Mexico.
So let's got a little rough there. How do you balance that out?
President Taylor threatened to lead troops himself down there to defend the borders of New Mexico, and he had really ticked off a lot of his Southern supporters too, because they figured him as a Southern slaveholder, then he would be more sympathetic for the slavery cause, the cause of slavery.
Yeah.
But now states started talking about seceding. And Zachary Taylor flat out told him, "No way, bud. This is tighter than that, and it is treason, and you will have to stay, even if things are worse or bad," kind of thing. So, he was a very strong military leader at that point.
Yeah, he said he'd already said, he's ready to lead the troops to battle. So they, I guess they stayed in tow, right?
You imagine President Biden. Getting up on his horse and leading troops in the battle, kind of thing. Come on, man.
That would be a statement.
that would be interesting. So that's basically his presidency, and there's not a whole lot more else to talk about.
No,
except his demise.
Yeah. So on July 4th, 1850, Taylor eats some cherries and ice cream, milk, at a fundraising event for the Washington Monument. He gets severely ill and dies.
Yeah, some form of gastrointestinal cholera, problem that he had with they said the cherries themselves. Some people said foul play. I'm kind of in the camp that there was foul play due to the enemies that he had made. With all the compromises and things like that. It's definitely happened before in this world, where people were taken out. But he was actually exhumed, I think, in 1991 or something like that, and they tested him for arsenic poisoning, and said he did not have the arsenic in there. But he got a sickness. Within a couple of days, he died. This guy had malaria, yellow fever, cholera, typhoid, all these things he's had in his life by living out on these rough places. Gets to be president, and he dies from eating frozen milk and cherries, man.
Cherries got him, man.
Yeah, and this is the time too where the sanitation things in D.C. were not very good, and we know that just behind the White House was basically where a sewage runoff dump would be, right there, kind of thing. So a lot of people think that was the big cause of his demise, and there was some other people there in the White House that were sick that day too.
Vice President Millard Fillmore,
your favorite president. Millard Fillmore.
I don't know. That's a name, man. Millard Fillmore.
Yeah, man. We forgot to mention, was his vice president, just because he was from New York, very powerful up there. They figured he was a Southern. If you follow presidential elections, it's very common to get somebody different to pull in the votes. So him being a Southern slaveholder and Millard Fillmore being, a New York lawyer kind of thing, kind of balanced it out to pull some votes there. So Millard Fillmore becomes the president.
Yep. That's it. That's it. Old Taylor's body is taken back to his home near Louisville and buried by his parents in Springfield.
Yeah. Now, I think later on, about 1919 or so, they built a mausoleum for him right there. The government gets the land, and it's a presidential park there that you can go visit. He's the only president buried in
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Woo!
Absolutely.
He a few, I guess, to wrap things up here. He was the last president to own slaves, and he was the second to die in office. Several things have been named after him, but the one I'm going to bring up, of course, is Taylor County. Kentucky is named after him. However, it was not named after him while he was president. It was named after him before he was president. The actual, I think, 1849 is when it was named after him, and then the next year he became president. So,
well, the election was in 1848, so maybe it'd have been 1847.
Oh,
but
maybe
yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, so it may be cool. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got Navy ships named after him. He's got several military bases, according to Camp Taylor there in Louisville there during World War I and such. But pretty neat guy, President.
Yeah,
your General Zachary Taylor.
A lot of people, especially in Kentucky, probably don't realize his connection as much. I mean, not to lived in Kentucky continuously, but he was raised here for sure. So,
well, he's one of them guys, kind of like George Rogers Clark. I mean, the two of them had mass success and were rock star huge names in their time. But as history has went on, they've been forgotten about in most cases. A lot of history is not important to anybody anymore anyway, kind of thing. And he doesn't have a lot of scandal behind him. He was a Christian man, kind of thing. He did love to chew his tobacco, though. He's kept his spittoon right there in the White House, and fired it right there. He said he was a pretty good shot with it, I've heard. But but he was a clean guy, and so there's not a lot of scandal there, and he's a guy that's forgotten about a whole lot.
Yep. Pretty good Kentuckian. He deserves a lot of recognition.
Sure. So good deal, man. That sums up President Major General Zachary Taylor. We've got a new topic there next week, don't we? We
do. I believe we won't be on Thursday, though. Just a bit like
on Thursday. Yeah, we got a couple little issues with that we'll talk about later. But our next show is going to be about Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon. Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon, who a very famous Marine, and then later on Kentuckian. If you notice, the Marine officer sword has a huge connection to Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon, who became a Kentuckian later on. So we're looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I'm ready. So.
Yeah, man. Well, make sure you like us, like our subscribe to our YouTube channels. Both channels are growing expeditiously, and all kinds of stuff going on. And anything else you want to say before we take off, Jameson?
That's about it, man. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, I guess.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll sign off, guys. And hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.
At Family Tree Nuts, we make professional, historic videos all over the country and currently have videos in 25 states and even a few international. Let's face it, nobody wants to read anymore. As a matter of fact, nobody wants to even watch long videos, which is why I'm going to keep this real quick. Moving into the future, how are we going to educate the public on all the historic treasures that are found in every community? we have found the answer. Short, entertaining, and to-the-point videos with lots of shots and views that are relevant to the subject. These videos are shared on social media and are the fastest and least expensive way to educate the community on the history of your area. We have experience working with historical organizations as well as city or county tourism departments and Chamber of Commerce's to produce these videos for their use. Our clients are provided with copies of any video produced as well as online links to the videos that they can easily add to their websites. Let us document and produce videos of just a few or all the historic sites in your area. You will find our rates extremely affordable and well below the industry standard for media production. We are passionate about preserving and documenting as many historical sites as we can, and we would love to work with you. For more information, contact me directly at russ@familytreenuts.org or my personal phone at 859-314-1976. And remember, Family Tree Nuts, let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.